What is going on, guys? Happy Wednesday as always. Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. Now, today's kind of chat. People ask all the time, what size of tank should I get? Should I get a little tank, a big tank? Like, this honestly comes up constantly. So I figure it'd be a good one to do kind of a live stream on. Now, there's kind of two schools of thought on this. One of them is, buy the biggest tank you can possibly find. There's less issues. Now, on the flip side, having a giant tank also means it's going to cost you a lot more. Duradicate, what's going on? Nano, Reef Keeper, welcome, guys. Hopefully, you guys are having an awesome Wednesday. Where are your diffusers? Oh, they're on the tank. This is an old video in the background. I was going to do a new one, but I didn't have a chance today, so I just put up an old clip. What's going on, Steve? Robert, welcome. Yeah, so a lot of time I see the question, what size of tank should I get? What size of tank? And everyone says bigger is better. And I know there's lots of people with the whole nano challenge. Lots of people are going for the nano tanks lately. And I started with the nano. I think they're tons of fun. I like how it's very cheap to get started. I mean, I'm probably into this little tank for like 50 bucks or less. So super cheap. So you can do a nano extremely cheap. What's going on, Haley? Where the big tank, I know I spent a small fortune on it. So one of the big pros about doing a small tank is it's an easy way to get your feet wet and see if this hobby is kind of right for you. Now, having said that, I found myself upgrading many times, mainly because I got the whole coral addiction. So, my drug is coral. So it's just like, oh, I ran out of space for corals, so you want a bigger tank. So this is kind of one of the trade-offs. Now, in a nano tank, you can go buy a little frag, and it looks like a colony in kind of comparison. So there's some pretty cool kind of benefits to having a nano, as you can make it look good pretty quick for not a lot of money. Now, in a big tank, you get these little frags, and or you're tempted to buy colonies, and you want some giant piece because you want it to fill up that space. CFM Gaming just subscribed. Thanks, CFM Jamie, if you're watching the stream. Can you stock more and efficiently with live rock? I bought a 4-foot 90-gallon tank as my first. Okay, so honestly, a 90-gallon 4-foot tank is, I would say, the most common tank out there. Like, that has to be one of the most popular ones. Can you stock more? I wouldn't really say the size of the tank necessarily. Like in a 90-gallon reef or fish only, that doesn't make that big of a difference. It really comes down to how much live rock you have in there, how much filtration. So if you have, like a bunch of marine pure and other types of ceramic media in your sump, you can even have less rock in your thing. I would say, honestly, the biggest thing for how many fish you put in your tank is having enough territories, having enough little caves in different areas that the fish have their own space they can kind of hide in. And that's probably one of the bigger things for how many fish you can put in your tank, is just to make sure they're not aggressive towards each other and scrapping over the good sleeping spots, that type of stuff. But so yeah, on the nano tank. So my first tank was 12-gallon fluval edge for saltwater. Then after that, I went to, I think it was a 16-gallon in marine. Then I had the 30-gallon, or the 24-gallon. I had a 16-gallon, I had a 30-gallon. Now I have my 100 and something gallon. And now the little guy on my desk over here is like 7-gallon boat front, I think it is. So super cheap for the little tank. Now, one of the big things when you have a giant tank is a lot of people say it's more stable, which is true to an extent. If something is off, it's not going to happen as quickly, which is one of the big things. If you have, like a swing in temperature, it's going to take a lot longer. Cody, mom, welcome. Reefing with O, welcome. Drew Advocate, Woody's Reef, what's going on, guys? Michael from Aaron's Aquarium, welcome. What's going on, DC? Sorry, a little late to catch up on that. I was on my better ramp. So yes, so here's the trade-off, right? In a nano tank, yes, stuff can swing quicker, but at the same time, it's easy to fix. If you got an issue in your thing, I got my 20-gallon tank, 1 bucket, 5-gallon water change, everything's good to go again. So I mean, it's pretty easy to remedy stuff. Or you have a 5-gallon nano, you do what, like a 1 gallon a week water change? It costs you next to nothing in salt. You don't need a protein skimmer, you don't need any of this extra stuff. You'll get all your calcium alkalinity from your salt and your water changes. Sending my watches over. Thanks, buddy, appreciate it. What would you put in a 25-gallon reef? What's going on, Cruz? I will drop a YouTube or Hangout link in a few minutes for you guys. And so what I'm trying, what's going on, Craigor? So what I'm trying in my nano tank, at least, I'm trying to find, honestly, like the smallest fish I can. because I'm trying to pick all stuff that I can't have in my big reef tank. So, I got like my, hippo tangs and my powder blue, my yellow tang, and I got all these big fish. So I'm purposely trying to find stuff that are, 2.5 inches maximum for the little tank, just because it's stuff that I've never seen in my tank. Like one of the ones I'm trying to get is a flaming prong goby. Those things are like half an inch, inch and a half would be the absolute max. Super tiny, super cool. Cody Mon, what's going on? Yellowfellow Reefer. I agree. ReefDudes was talking about that yesterday. Yeah, so we were talking about it a little yesterday, and then someone actually asked me the same question, so I brought it up. Yes, the diffuser's on my tank. The video clip behind me was from the old diffusers. I was gonna try and film a new clip of it today just to use as the background, but my day was nuts, so didn't have a chance to do it. Miracle Mud shipping tomorrow. Nice. Nanos are a lot easier in big tanks, in my opinion, and it's less stress on the reefer. DC, I would agree. And honestly, cost-wise is a huge thing. On a big tank, lighting is probably the most expensive thing you're going to take. Like I have, even on my Nano, I mean, at one point, I did a bunch of upgrades, but I ended up having 2 Radions on my Nano, 2 extra 15s, and I got a big tank, now I have 4. But starting out, like you can go spend $30 on one of those Power 38 bulbs and screw in a desk lamp and use that on your Nano. There's $30 for a bulb. You can probably pick up a tank for $20. You need maybe a small power head or a little hang-on aqua clear, little whatever that one I got, that zoo one I threw on my tank is like $15 on Amazon. Super cheap. Less than $100 you can have a nano tank on the go. Don't need a protein skimmer. A lot of people think you need a protein skimmer. I honestly, on a small tank, absolutely pointless. Like, yes, they probably do a bunch, but you're just adding noise, extra links, everything else to it. See if this link works there, Cruz. I might have to do that whole redirect thing. Let me just quickly try it. So if that doesn't work, I will try the shortened link. I'll grab one just in case. In my Pico 7-gallon, I have a court jester. I think I get away with one more small fish. I would say so, Haley. I have 2 fish in my Nano so far, so slowly growing. I plan on adding a bunch more. Now, there's that link, Cruise, and here's link number 2. Okay, so lighting is so pricey. So I agree. Lighting is 100% going to be the most expensive part in a tank. It doesn't have to be. If you want a fancy light, if you want your Kessel, you want your radio and all that stuff, yes, it's not cheap. I'm probably going with an AI Prime because that gives you all the control and that type of stuff in a smaller package. Personally, I think that's probably one of the better lights for a little tank because it's tiny. It'll do the job for, I'd say, about an 18 by 18 cube. You can get away with that. If I wanted to do it like super budget, I would probably buy one of those little Par 38 bulbs and throw it on a desk lamp. That'll cost you like $30, you're done. So Curious, I'm assuming by the sad face that link didn't work. Let me invite you in if I can. Alright, Curious, I'm just going to send you an invite and see if that works. Links don't work. Yeah, there's some issue. If anyone, key to smaller fish is hiding. Key to smaller fish is having fish out in open space. Scape. Yeah, so a lot of the times your fish are gonna hide. I mean, you can see it. In a big tank, you wouldn't find your fish. Like a lot of these little fish, like that pygmy goby, is honestly this big. Like he's super cute, but you would never see him. Who's allowed to join? If it's the chat, pretty much anyone. If you're going to join Nano contest, anyone that they want. Seymour, sure, I'll send you an invite too, since the links aren't working. Let me just copy the link again. Nano tanks require more attention. Bigger tanks, set it and forget it. Yes and no. So see if that link works. If not, it might not. It's probably that YouTube redirect thing. If not, I'll try and figure it out. So with a nano tank, maybe it requires more attention. On the flip side, unless it's absolutely packed full of SPS, you literally do a weekly water change. That's it. Like you don't need yeah, you probably don't even have to dose unless it's literally packed full of SPS. Like at one point, in a year from now, maybe I'll probably have to dose. But starting out, I bet any money you'll just be able to weekly water change, call it a day. What's my tank rate? Like, a 20-gallon tank. 5 gallons a week, that's 25% of the water change. There goes all your nitrates, your phosphates, super easy maintenance. So that's one of the huge benefits of having a nano tank. Rookie Reefer, what's going on, buddy? Okay, now big tank. So the biggest reason, at least that I find that I upgrade for me, is because I became addicted to corals. What's going on, Alex? Big tank and a small nano. The nano is much easier to care for. So yeah, I would agree. All my small tanks, literally a weekly water change. That's it. That's all you gotta do in a small tank. The smaller your tank is, the smaller your water change. You could put a Dixie cup full of water and call it a day on a Pico tank. So, nano tank definitely requires more attention, in my experience, but a lot less equipment. Yeah, so you could honestly a power head, a light, and a heater. That's it. That's all you need. I had the tiniest little aqua clear Azu filter I could find. It was like $15, literally to hold a bag of carbon. That's it. It's my only flow in the tank. I'll probably throw a little power head on maybe if I keep it. Bare bottom on a big tank. So bare bottom is 100% personal preference. Some people like it. The theory behind it is it's easier to maintain because there's no detritus that builds up. You don't have to worry about cleaning the sand bed as much. Now, on the flip side of that, you have less space for bacteria and extent. So you could have more stuff in your sump or somewhere else hiding it. Now, I like sand because I like the more natural look, and I also feel that it helps, it's more space for bacteria. So can't get in. Here, let me try starting a new Hangout. Not that it will make a difference, but I believe it's going to be the whole link of it. So yeah, sand or bare bottom, 100% personal preference. Both work. Lots of people, you have successes either way. Personal preference, I like sand. I think it looks better, but that's really the deciding factor. All right, so here's a new link. I just did a new Hangout. See if that works. It probably won't, but let me recopy it. Then do the bit.ly thing, and then I'll pop it again. All right, so that bit.ly, I'll copy the YouTube Hangouts links, and then this one may work if we're lucky. All right, try that one. So big tank requires a lot of attention. You have to maintain more equipment, plus the cost of a bigger tank is way more. So it is pricey. A big tank, you spend a couple $100 on a protein skimmer. That's one issue. Lee, finally I can send live chats in. Welcome, welcome. What's going on, Sandy? Yeah, so big tank. I mean, protein skimmers, right? You got media reactors. You got some, usually a bigger, fancy return pump. You got a lot of lighting. You got big power heads. Like it adds up. It's not cheap at all. Have you had a tank crash before? No, I have not. So far, so good. A rookie depends on stock. Yes, the Nano with no skimmer seems to get a heck of a lot dirtier than a normal tank 3 times as quickly. Now, on the flip side, I mean, still a small tank with a weekly water change. That's literally, as long as you stick to the maintenance of that, I think they're super easy. YouTube redirect. Yeah, I copied and pasted that one if it did not work. Hopefully YouTube fixes the links. Okay, so there's the normal Hangout link. If I copy the redirect and paste it, I don't know, try one of those two, see if either of those work. Now I think about how much equipment I have in my big tank, and it's absolutely crazy. Like tons of money. Like big tanks are not cheap by any means. Did I see your last question? No, I did not, Chris's Fish Room. Let me scroll up and find it. Or ask, oh, Dev, my 20-gallon tank, should I remove the all-in-one filter and just run a hang on the back? All-in-one filter, are you talking about a protein skimmer? Or depends what you're talking about. What kind of tank is it and what's the filter you're talking about? Adding a hang on the back will give you a little bit more water volume. So it kind of depends. I mean, on the flip side, it's kind of nice having an all-in-one because there's less chance of anything ever leaking because it's all contained. You don't need a sump and a nano. You do not. I would still recommend them. Personal preference, mainly because you can hide everything. You can put all your equipment in that miniature sump. Like the all-in-ones have that little channel in the back, and that you can hide your heaters. Like that's the big thing, really, right? I like to hide my heaters. If I bag of carbon or ChemiPure, any of those you can hide in the back, which is pretty cool. Engineering aquariums, welcome. Just in my 120, it costs way much that I can think of. This is true. So a lot of things like with my nano that I'm doing, I'm trying to keep that scale. So I'm trying to find super tiny fish to put in there, and so it makes the tank look bigger, even though it's tiny, right? So all these little things. Like the fish I have now, like they probably get eaten in my big tank, and they're super ones I've wanted. I couldn't have them in ages. Like I used to have sexy shrimp in my big tank for it actually lasted about a year, and they slowly got picked off. There's none, so now I picked up 3 more and I threw them in the nano. They're kind of fun to watch, but protein skimmers built in. It depends if the protein skimmer works. I mean, have at or leave it on. It definitely doesn't hurt to have one, depending on the size of the tank. I don't think you need it. I would probably say setting up a quarantine tank for my display. That's a good call, Cody. Honestly, on any tank, I'd say 30, 40 gallons or less. I probably wouldn't bother with the skimmer. 40 gallons and up, 40 to 60, I'd probably start considering it. But yeah, something that's like 5, 10, 20, 30 gallons, I wouldn't bother. I don't think you need it. Dr. Welsh Magic, welcome. Very afraid of infesting my display. Okay, so it's always a good idea to quarantine, right? Otherwise, you're literally rolling the dice with every fish you add. And when you first start out, I mean, if you're adding your first 3 fish from the same store, I would probably throw them in the tank. I mean, that could essentially be your quarantine. If you don't have any coral, you don't have anything to risk yet, right? I mean, if they had ick or something, you could run the risk of it spreading in your tank, or maybe it will live its life cycle in there. But if you have a tank with nothing in it yet, then there isn't too much of a risk as doing. The longer you have your tank, the more mature it is, the more fish. That's kind of when it gets riskier as time goes on. So it's kind of a judgment call. I mean, it's always good to be safe. And another thing too, like I've said this many times, but really try and get your fish in reputable places if you can. Try and make sure they're healthy, make sure there's no cloudy eyes, make sure there's no spots on them or scars or anything. Like you just want to make sure you get really good livestock. Ideally, buy it from some of the pre-quarantines that adds that extra level of safety. It's all kind of stuff to consider. Uh, what's going on, Dr. Welsh? Dev, what salt to use? I honestly, okay, with the salt thing, right now I'm just using good old Insnocean or Reef crystals. I have both. It's kind of whatever's on sale, to be honest. I've used Reef crystals for most of the time, and the last one I bought a box of Insnocean because it was on sale for cheap. I can't say. In a nano, if you're relying on it solely for all the nutrients in it, like for your trace elements, for your calcium, your alkalinity, then I think it might be worth a little more attention on the salt. Like I may try and mix it up and try brand new salt when I set up the Red Sea or the 20 gallon or whatever I do for my proper nano for the challenge. So I'll probably pay more attention when I do on that. For my big tank, I honestly don't really worry about it because I'm adding trace elements. I got miracle mud in the tank. I'm adding calcium, alkalinity. So I'm adding all these nutrients in afterwards. So I'm not worried about getting too much of them from the salt. Like it has little extra trace elements and things, and that's perfect. But on the flip side, I'm adding them all in anyway. So why I don't it's hard to justify paying, double for the salt that I'm doing anyways. That and I only ever do a 5 gallon water change on my tank. So one bucket on 100 and something gallons, it's like 4 or 5%. So it's a very small water change when I do it. So it's not enough to really put a lot back into it. So that's why I kind of don't really worry too much as long as it's a semi-decent salt. And, tons of people have been using for years, so that's what I'm using. But now on the Nano, I might, broaden my horizon and try, a Red Sea or Aqua Forest or I don't know, one of the different salts just to try it. I'm kind of using the small tank as a bit of my excuse to experiment and try and get different creatures I've never had before and all that type of stuff. So it's kind of fun that way. Dr. Wells just finished a mini rescape on the main tank. It looks more like a pile of rocks now than it did before. Nice work. I don't know if that's what you're going for. Rookie Reef for 100% dev. If you're not happy with your stock sword, go somewhere else. Yeah, exactly. Like if you see a fish that looks like it's not doing well, don't buy it. If I see a fish that's like dead in the tank, like I'm not gonna buy anything from there. Nothing from that system. Like because what happened to it? What it might affect the other people? Like you just got to use a lot of caution up front. Like if it doesn't look perfect, hold out and you're just saving yourself a ton of hassle down the road. Your fellow reefer do a 5 gallon water change on my 120. Yep, exactly. That's probably all I do on mine too. Thoughts about using ozone on an SCA 301? I have no idea what size that is, so I'm going to quickly look it up, or let me know what size is the 301. I think ozone can be beneficial in any tank. I mean, I'm not going to use it in my nano, but on a larger tank, I think the benefit gets bigger the larger the tank, because it kind of takes the place of carbon to an extent. Now with ozone, I get asked about it all the time. Yes, I'm still using it. I run it for about 3 or 4 hours a night, and I run about 20, 25 milligrams, and that's on about 120, 140 gallons of water. So whenever you're doing it, make sure that you don't overdo it. Less is more. Too much ozone is bad. A little bit of ozone has tons of benefits. So just do not overdo it and start very slow and cautiously if any of you guys are going to do it. Have you heard of people having issues with Fritz and having some problems? My ACANs. Okay, so I did try a Fritz project. I've heard really good things with RPM salt. Now, I've tried a Fritz project. I can't say for sure, but a couple of my corals had issues after using it, so I quit using it. Now, I can't 100% say for sure, but I'm a little bit skeptical at the moment. I don't really want to try it again to find out for sure, though. So I do use the Fritz, what's it called? For culturing phytoplankton. I use their product for that, which works well. I've heard great things about the RPM salt. If I had it locally, I'd for sure jump on it because that keeps their alkalinity is around 8.5, which is where I target my tank. My one complaint with a lot of the reef salts is I find they're very high levels. I don't know why, but 8.5 is where I target for my tank. And a lot of them will have like 11, 12, 13 elk. So if you do a large water change, you're going to spike your alkalinity and annoy your corals, right? So some people like, oh, something's panicked in my tank, something's wrong. They do like 50% water change, and then all of a sudden their corals aren't happy after that. It's because you're creating huge swings in the parameters of your tank if you're not keeping your parameters at that high level. That's another thing to kind of consider too, right? You got to think about all the different things that could be affecting and annoying things. Was it 460? Yes, it was. It was a 460 sludge remover. So I tried that, and it was mainly to see if it get rid of the green cyano that's plaguing my sandbed on and off. Now, two notes. So I did use that, and my green cyano's gone, but I also added just miracle mud to my tank. So was it the 460 or was it the miracle mud? I don't know. But from using the 460, I did have two corals that started to reseed a little bit. The flesh, which really sucked. They're not fully done. I use one of Cruz's tips and I put a little bit of super glue around the edge, which definitely seems to help or reduce it. Now I'm still keeping an eye on it. I haven't fragged them yet. If it gets too bad, I mean, I'll frag up the coral, but I'm hoping it doesn't. But everything else is fine. There's just two corals that were not happy about that bacteria, so it's hard to say. Would you recommend getting a Neptune Apex when you first start up your saltwater tank? First starting up, I wouldn't say no, not right away. Apexes are definitely nice to have. You will appreciate once you have it. They're not cheap. They're expensive to buy. I love my Apex for sure. I would make sure you get decent flow in your tank and decent lighting first. But that's something I would definitely recommend upgrading to down the road because it makes your life easier. It's a great kind of safety feature. Um, Tried microbubbling. Yes, I might microbubble every single night. If you haven't seen it, I do have a video on that, and I'll drop that link in a minute. So I do microbubble on a nightly basis. Basically, when the lights go up, I have a little air bubbler under a little tiny power head in my pump in my Sump berry return chamber, and it blows the bubbles all around that chamber, and then they get sucked into the return pump. Let me just quickly find that video. Let's drop it so you have it. All right, so there's a good video on it if you want to check her out later. I use the 460 every day. It's bacteria. Can't see that killing SPS. I don't know. My one thought is maybe I just got like a funky bottle of bacteria I bought off Amazon. Maybe it's sitting on a shelf, got overheated, cooled. I have no idea. That's why I started a video on it and I haven't finished it because I can't say for sure, so I don't really want to say it. Should you siphon your sand bed? Yes, I think it's a good idea. Now don't siphon your whole sand bed one day. Because if you haven't touched for a long time, there's lots of stuff you could stir up stuff and it could be kind of nasty in your tank. I mean, you could be releasing little pockets of stuff if you got a deeper sand bed. Every time you do water change, just pick a little chunk and just do it. Or do like maybe a quarter of it or something. Just don't do it all at once. So I just kind of ease into it. Little tank, big tank, anything. You just don't want a bunch of detritus and stuff building up in your sand bed over time. So it's definitely a good idea to do it. Speedy, siphon the top, not too deep inside. I alternate. For most of the time, I just, that little bits of green stuff, it's pretty much all gone now. But I would just siphon the top. And aside from that, Cruise can't get in. And then every once in a while, I'll give it a good one. How about you call me directly on Hangouts, Cruz? Or if I message you, I'll send you a link on Facebook. Give me one sec here. It's just the YouTube thing that's buggering with the link. Apex is like candy. So yeah, like I bought the Apex. I bought a used Apex before I had my big tank. 'Cause I knew I was gonna get it eventually. So I had it on my little 30-gallon tank. Did you need it? No. Did I like it? Yes. It's great for monitoring. One of the biggest things is just the redundancy of it. You can use all kinds of fail safes, like if my return pump's off, turn off my skimmer. That way, if the water level rises, it's not going to overflow. With a little flow valve in there, like it's all stuff like that, which makes your life easier. Cruz, I'm just going to fire you a quick link on Facebook, and hopefully that one works because I know the Hangouts doesn't copy and paste links very nicely anymore. All right, so I sent you that one. Like how I made his 300-gallon look. First bacteria you talking about? No, I was talking about it's called a sludge remover. But like I said, I mean, Paul said he uses every week, and his is perfectly fine. So that works too. So it should be could just be a funky bottle. That's why I don't have any idea if it is, but I quit using it because of that. But my theory was potentially it would work to get rid of the cyano. So I don't have any cyano now. Might have been that. Might have been the miracle mud. So it's hard to say for sure. Neptune spidey senses were tingling. So Apex Classic good. So Apex Classic will do absolutely everything you need. There's a couple new products, like there's the Trident, which is an automated water tester. That you need the new Apex for. I believe that's the only product. They do have a new ALD. I don't think that makes a difference. So there's a couple products that work with the new one, but most of the other stuff doesn't. So if you want those new fancy features, then yes, get a new one. Otherwise, the Classic works good. I had a Classic for ages. The only reason I upgrade is because someone gave me a decent price for it, and then it was an excuse to upgrade mine. So, but they definitely make your life easier. So, judgment call. Do you need it? No. Do I love mine? Yes. So, if you got the cash, go for it. That's kind of my thing. If you don't, just keep an eye out for a good deal on a used one. It's a good way to get into it. Nope, diffusers are still in the tank. This is an old video clip. I was going to do a new one today, but my day was swamped, so it didn't happen. So I just grabbed an old video clip just for the background for now. Sure, Terrence, I'll fire you a link. Okay, one sec. Drew sent you an invite. And let me copy it for Terrence if he wants it. Give me one sec. I really hope they fix the whole YouTube link thing because it is a bit of a pain not being able to do it this way.
Hello. Sorry.
What? No problem. Welcome.
Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, we might have to just like pre-Facebook them out, or maybe I'll post the Hangout link on like the ReefDudes group or something in the future. Might make life easier.
Yeah, it's weird how they rearranged it and re-networked it.
Yeah,
It's
I
weird.
know. It yeah, I think they did it to stop like spam links and whatnot because it takes that kind of redirect for a safety page, but you think
Mm.
it would work with Hangouts considering they're both Google.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh well, what can we do? We'll find workarounds. So
Yep.
what are your thoughts on a whole nano versus large system? What do you think, Cruz?
Well, I mean, to me, a nano tank would be like a tide pool.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like a tide pool type of system. You're not talking about heavy flow. You're not talking about large thrashing waves or wave makers or anything like that. It's just basically a recirculation and make sure it's kind of like a still pond. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, stuff that you would find in tide pools, anemones, little shrimps, little teeny tiny fish here and there, a couple
Mm-hmm.
of crabs. Um, whereas the bigger systems, that's where you actually get your immense growth. And that's one of the things that
True.
I was really, really thinking about and talking to a couple of the guys that are actually doing the nano challenge as well. And we're like, well, you know, what are we actually going to do? What's the theme?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to aquascape it? Are we looking to grow the fastest, you know, the biggest, the fastest, the colorful? You know what I'm saying? It's a totally different concentration. It's a different, I guess, end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to go for low maintenance? You know, are we going to utilize all the skimmers that we can? Are we going to go with a small skimmer, big skimmer, no skimmer? And there's just so many different choices now that we didn't have before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that yeah,
Personally,
I'm sure
I'm
that a lot of us
yeah.
can attest to that. Is that it poses a lot more new questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like we question ourselves on how do we actually want to set up our tank? Is it going to be a miniature of our larger systems, or is it going to be totally different?
Mine is a complete experiment. I'm just trying to get stuff that I don't normally use, just an excuse to try it, and all the little creatures that I know would either get eaten or disappear in my display tank.
Absolutely, like harlequins. They're a great little nano tank
Mm-hmm.
Great little nano tank invert.
Yep. Nope.
But I
Definitely.
mean, what about the pom pom crabs?
Got
Pom
one
pom
on order.
crabs.
Sexy shrimp. Actually, the one I'm still trying to track down. I asked one of my LFSs to get me it, but the Geringer goby or the spike fin, they're like literally like an inch, and they got like the crazy fin
Oh
dragging
yeah.
looking things. I really want one of those. I don't know why. I know they're tiny and I would lose it, but they'll be good.
Barnacle Blenny.
Barnacle Blenny? Actually, those
Barnacle
guys are
Blenny.
pretty cool. Are you jumping on with your 6 gallon with an Apex, Terrence?
Yeah, too busy for that, guys. I'm sorry.
It's worth a try.
Oh,
I would
come
have
on,
loved.
Terrence.
I'm not gonna lie. I would be very excited to see this tiny tank with like all these crazy automation equipment on it. It'd be great.
You don't want to see the wires coming out the bottom of my 10-gallon.
Hey, as long as you can hide them and it looks good, have at her. I think it'd be cool.
See, what I would like to see is a half size, tiny little Apex hanging off the side, hanging off the side like a clip-on.
Little baby Apex.
The
Yeah, little
Apex,
teeny tiny
Apex Lego version.
Nice.
Exactly.
Neptune Mindstorm
But
automation.
that'd be funny. But
Well,
yeah.
well, that'd be great. So I don't know. The biggest thing, because everyone always says go bigger is easier, but at the same time, Nano is cheap and it's easy. Like it's an easy way for people to get their feet wet, which is good.
Yeah.
And like
And I mean, in the tide pools, if you get the tide pool type of wildlife,
hmm
they're used to the salinity fluctuations.
hmm
And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, they could go all the way, like over there in Hawaii, how we have, how we had rainstorms on the mountainside and stuff like that. The
hmm
tide pools, they go to brackish almost, and
Yep.
even less sometimes. And there's like tons of wildlife that still manage to adapt,
hmm
to the huge fluctuations. High tide, low tide. All of a sudden you're getting full salt water, and then the next minute you got rain.
hmm
That's diluting it real quick. But yet they still stay alive. Why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Huge temperature fluctuations in small tide pools as well.
hmm
Depending on nighttime, daytime, and also whether or not it rained. It also drives the temperature down. You're talking about 60, 66, 67, 68 degrees
hmm
after a rainstorm. And you kind of really think about it, and you're like, well, those guys are pretty hardy. If you get a nano tank that you don't want to have to babysit every single second of the day, you might want to go with the hardier type of livestock.
hmm
Something that can actually take those swings
Something that's used to
in
it.
nature.
Yep.
Exactly.
hmm So on that note, do you have any good suggestions for hardy livestock that are used to those type of swings?
Well, there's a couple of inverts. There's always the some of the snails. A lot of the some of the starfish are pretty hardy.
hmm
Let's see. There are a couple of dartfish. The gobies that you were talking about.
hmm
I believe they're what is it called? Man, what are they? Like little tide pool sculpins. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Dev? Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
I think so. I
Almost
mean,
like a little teeny. Yeah, they're tiny. They're like tiny.
Scooter Blenny, the
Sunfish.
red Scooter Blennies.
that's actually
Yes,
one of my potentials. They're
yeah,
cool.
and the dragonettes. Yes.
hmm The ruby
Awesome,
reds are
Terrence. Thank
nice.
you.
They're
Yes, the
jumpers
ruby
though,
reds
so
are very
make
very
sure you
nice.
put a lid on it if you guys get one of those. Oh, looks like we just lost Cruz for a sec there. So someone is saying a lot of issue or a couple things are in the chat. One is saying too about dilution be like one of the things. So in a nano, dilution's a solution to pollution. There you go. That's one I hear a lot. But literally, like you do a small water change and it resets your tank to an extent. So I mean, there's a lot of issues that are solved so easy in a small tank. Like it's easy to go do a gallon or a couple gallon water change. Not in a big tank where you have to pull out the Rubbermaid bin and do your 30, 40 gallons for some big issue that happens. Or in a little tank, your couple gallons, nothing. So that's one of the big
Yeah, but I'll
things.
be the devil's advocate here in that once you lock up the nitrates into the rocks and the substrate into a nano, just
Mhm.
changing the water isn't going to do you a whole lot.
Do you think that the rock and everything actually locks it or holds that much? Like Sandbed and stuff, detritus and stuff. But in the rock, do you think it does?
Absolutely, and I know
Yeah.
that for a fact simply from a couple of the two nanos I have here in my office. One of which is now fairly overgrown with algae, but has a lot of awesome coral in it, and the other one I've taken everything out of, and it had it had rocks in it for quite some time that got algae on them, and then I had a couple other rocks that I was trying to get an anemone onto that were brand new, and I tossed them into the tank, and for 7.5 or 8 months, no algae grew on those rocks. Period.
Yep. You know what
So
the secret's to encrust your rock in corals, and there's no place for the algae to go, and it can stay locked up inside. That's my theory, at least. Just don't give it any room to grow. I don't know if Nick's on, but I know he's a big thing too about not liking porous rock for that same reason. He wants to try and do like glass rock or some other kind of crazy way that can't absorb literally nothing. That's a trade-off. Some people have major disease. Give the jump up to 20. So what do you think, Terrence? You said you have a couple 10 gallons? So you have your large reef, like your nice large one, and you have a couple small ones in there as well?
I mean, I've got a 10-gallon in my office here that has, I've had it for 3 years now, and it's been living for 3 years. It still lives great. I mean, it's got, some expensive coral in it, and it just has a ton of algae just because I never do anything to the tank. I never water change it. I never do anything.
Fair enough.
And it finally just, got crazy. I mean, my nutrient export basically has been every 6 weeks, tear out all of the hair algae and clean the filter sock and maybe give it a water change every 3 months. And then, 2 months later, I get some more algae in it and I tear it out, and that's how I export all the nutrients.
Yeah.
And, but it's got scalemia in it, and it's got a couple of nice acans, and it actually grows a hydnophora, hard coral, with me never adding anything into it. And it actually has grown tremendously, and a really nice hammer coral on a magnet on the back, and it's done really well. So I'm going to basically tear it apart, do an acid wash on it one of these days, and throw it back together again, because it's a great little tank.
Basically just reset it?
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that's fair. Now, do you
the other one I'm going to take out at my office, the other one was my first one I had in the office, and it had an anemone and a couple clowns in it. I moved the clowns to my house when my tank was ready at my house, and then it just kind of still ran in the office because I didn't want to take it down. And now I need to. It's got an anemone in it, and the anemone is about the size of a quarter now because it doesn't like the water.
Yeah.
But
do you have the tank beside you?
I'm not going to show it.
Oh, come on. You keep looking over. I know. I'm like, yeah, it's right there.
I'll show from afar that one. I won't show the second one. There. Oh, you can kind of see.
Just the edge of it.
Yeah.
It's like a sneak peek.
There you can kind of see. A little fan on the back to keep it. And you can see my Space Invader clock there. So.
Yeah, nice. No, right on.
That's about it.
My temporary Nano is pretty uneventful right now, but there's like a couple of Recordias I just threw in there. It's lit with like an LED desk lamp. It's pretty ghetto, but it works for now. I think Terrence should just let us see the 10-gallon algae tank.
Hey, I am going to give a shout out. One of our NSI guys, another YouTuber guy, he did a video recently on the Core 20, and we basically replaced all of the pumps that we had out there in the field in our NSI group with brand new ones just a couple of weeks ago. So they have all brand new pumps, and we can examine the ones we get back from them. But he sent this in with his package.
We know him pretty well.
Yeah, we know him pretty good.
So I got to give this guy props because, the guy knows how to, basically merchandise himself. I mean, it's like it was in the box with the core pump that he sent back. So he deserves a shout out right there.
There you go, Pelfrey. So, good work.
So.
It's not on right now. Yeah, I know him pretty well. He comes on and off quite a bit. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good idea, actually. Need stickers.
Yeah, I thought so too. I mean, I think it's one of the best ideas I've seen yet for if you have a sticker, just, chuck it in anything that's going back to a manufacturer. Who knows,
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's awesome. So all is well with the core pumps?
Yeah, I mean, they're right now hitting people's homes. We just had some of the outside of the NSI. We just had some of the first real customers around the country start logging into our community forum and posting in our community forum for the core.
Nice.
And so all the online guys, their pre-orders have already started going out last week. A good amount of the local fish stores have theirs coming out to them or are on their way. And basically, people will start seeing them pretty much around everywhere.
Is this the 20, right? The Core 20?
Both the 20 and the 15.
The 15. How physically big is the 15?
They're both the same size physically.
Okay.
The key difference between the two pumps, the pump motor body and the motor and everything, they're identical. The controller is different, or I should say the driver, we call it, is different. And then the Core 20 obviously comes with a power supply. And the reason for this is because there's not enough power inside the Energy Bar 832, for instance, to power the Core 20 and then say 2 waves at the same time. So because of that, we didn't want to, we obviously didn't want to have, 85 watts or so of power to be pulled through the 100-watt power supply inside the 832, and then somebody plugs in a couple of wave pumps, and now we got to throttle everything back, and it's just not a good experience. So with the Core 15, it won't pull any more than about 45 or 50 watts. And then you still have power left over for the waves, which max out at 35 watts, but nobody really runs both pumps wide open at 100% and the return pump at 100%. So that's how we know, the 100-watt power supply inside the 832 is more than powerful enough for 95% of the applications out there.
Okay. Excellent. All right, I've had 3 people ask when the Trident release date is, and someone asked if there's any chance the Core pump's in Europe.
So the Trident release date, we don't have a date. We never gave a date. We said pretty much mid-year summer, sometime like that. As far as we know right now, it's more or less on schedule. We've got a couple things that's little setbacks, but we don't have any other update to give out to the public. And as far as the Core pump going into Europe, I expect probably sometime around April it'll be heading over there, overseas. So.
And you can get it with or without Apex, right? You can buy just a standalone Core pump.
Yeah, absolutely. The Core 20. The Core 20 works standalone, so you buy that, it'll work without any Apex whatsoever.
Okay, perfect. There you go. I think I got all the questions in the chat. If I didn't, ask away. So now you need like a Nano Core 10 for all these nano tanks in the works right now.
Yeah, exactly. No, we don't have that in the works yet. We have our tiny little PMUP pump, and we've got the Core 15, and at some point we may look at a larger pump than the Core 20, or we may not. We don't know yet, because the Core 20 pump really, when used correctly, when plumbed correctly and everything else, is probably the Core 15 or the Core 20 probably handles on the order of 65% of the tanks at least out there on the market today. So given that, that's a good start.
Okay. So someone else just asked, are the Core pumps subject to brownouts? I'm just going to throw it out there. I would always advise put a UPS on your tank and all your equipment. Sorry, go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, I mean, brownouts, I mean, everything is subject to a brownout to some degree. Many electronic devices, depending on how their power supplies work, can be friendly or not friendly to, big power fluctuations. But it's never good. I mean, we were running 104 volts at Reefapalooza in California. That's right, in October. Because they had really poor power at the facility, and we can monitor it with the 832. And I think below about 102 volts, I think is where everything started to go a little nuts. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the best thing to do if you can is run stuff through a UPS, to make sure that you don't have that kind of problem.
Yeah. Okay, so some of the chat's asking what is UPS. It stands for uninterruptible power supply. It's basically like a giant power bar, a little box with batteries inside. So you're actually more or less running off the batteries. Now, if there's a spike or a dip in power, the batteries in that little circuit board inside will level it out. So you just have clean, smooth power. I run them on my computers and my tank. So definitely recommend that.
And they'll run filtering, on the power. Some of them. It depends on. There's a wide variety, and it's probably beyond the scope of this particular chat to discuss. But quite a number of them, the cheaper ones, actually don't run off the batteries and then run off the power. They'll back up to the batteries, but they still have quite amount of good filtering on them, and they will cut over to the batteries if the power drops below a certain level. So. The ones that actually kind of run a separate circuit where you're almost like running off an inverter kind of thing, you don't get into those until you spend quite a bit of money.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, with I'm throwing Seymour under the bus here because I know he's had a ton of power issues. He's had to replace a bunch of power supplies.
Come on.
It's coming up, Maddie. I'm sorry, but same thing. Do you put a UPS in your tank now?
Yes, sir.
No issues
Tired.
since you did it?
Oh man, tired of like power supplies and stuff. And um, interestingly, last summer, um, you know, in New York here, one of the really hot days, my Apex started sending me alerts, and I called up. I know Tom, so when I called up Tom, and he told me, say, yeah, well, you probably I don't know what the term is, but our power was essentially low because it was one of those like 100-degree days where I live in.
That's a brownout.
Yeah, oh, that's a brownout. So I think that Dev, I think it was after where I lost. Like I just started power supplies started failing left, right, and center. I think I replaced 3 or 4 power supplies last summer. So I now I have two. It's not terribly expensive, but I have 2 UPS that I think provide some protection. And if the power goes below a certain amount,
Exactly.
it's over the battery. So I don't have space for a bigger one, but I think that's better than nothing.
The other thing too that's problematic for some people is running generators or even running inverters, because a lot of the more inexpensive generators do not use a true sine wave type power, and they use a modified sine wave or even a square wave. And for a lot of electronics, that'll just make them go completely crazy. And from my own experience on the one generator I have at home, I know the Apex, at least the 832, does not like a non-sine wave generator. So that's good to know.
Yep.
Now I also have backup power supplies for everything because I can't afford for my return pump to go out again during the summer.
So since this is kind of DIY kind of stuff we always talk about here, my next little mini project that I want to do on my tank is actually, if anybody's familiar with motorhomes at all, motorhomes basically have kind of a 3-way power system on them, and that is sometimes 4-way power system on them. And so you plug into shore power, they call it, right, which is your depending on what kind of size motorhome you have, it can be 240 volt shore power, and then you have the generator, which generates the 110 volt when you don't have shore power, and then you often have batteries that will run obviously the 12 volt system on the motorhome, but also can have an inverter on them and run the 110 system when you don't have shore power and you just need house power, 110 power in the motorhome for a short period of time. And then they have what's in them. Usually they have a bunch of many of them have these all-in-one systems that have a converter, which basically takes 120 volt and makes it into 12 volt, an inverter, which does the reverse of that. And then they have automatic transfer switches in them. And with the automatic transfer switches, they basically prioritize what power will be used depending on what thing has been energized. And when that thing falls off, the next thing comes on, right? So you can imagine in a motorhome, what ends up happening is that you have the shore power, right? Shore power takes precedence, right? If you disconnect the shore power, then your inverter is working. And if you turn on your generator, it's all bets are off. It turns everything else off, right? And you can do the same thing at home. So I'm thinking of basically using one of these devices that you can get off eBay for motorhomes, and then you use golf cart batteries that are 6 volt, and they have a huge amount of storage. And you run them. You take 4 of those and you put them in series parallel and hook it up to this device. And now you've got a device that recharges the batteries. That when your when your aquarium goes offline from shore power, the main power, that one Energy Bar 832, it basically will go over to the battery power, and then you can start slowing things down on your aquarium with your Apex, and then that'll last a good. I can probably go at least 18 to 24 hours off of that with my aquarium, and then I can go start a generator and and get it going again. And when you start the generator, it'll charge the batteries back up. And should you need 6 hours to go get gas or something like that, or you go half a day without gas, you could do that too. So that's like one of my next little DIY projects to do in the home Reef.
On mine, I have a 147 amp hour battery in my stand. Like it is ridiculous how big this thing is. But I have that hooked up to the return pump, 2 of the wave makers, and the Apex. so that I can still send me alerts if it's out, and then I can still run stuff for like a week. But yeah, it works pretty well. Talk about battery backup. Yes, we are. It somehow went from nanos to battery backups. It's usually how it works. But I do plan on putting a
Sorry.
battery backup on my Nano. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, definitely any tank. Okay, if you have, a desk lamp and a little power head, I probably wouldn't bother. But if you're spending hundreds of dollars on lighting and all that other stuff, it's a decently cheap way to protect your investment from burning out. I mean, most of the time it's just the power supply that gets fried if there, is a big spike or a big brownout or something. But this saves a big hassle. I definitely recommend it. Life support and battery back. Yeah, at the very least, you need flow in the tank, right? If nothing else, have a power head or your return pump, something to keep that water moving and keep oxygenate, because that's the first thing that's going to cause issues in your tank. If you're somewhere super cold, I mean, the problem with putting a heater on a battery backup is going to kill it fast. A nano is probably not too bad, but it'll still drain your battery pretty quick, because if you're pumping, 100 watts out of that versus a 15-watt DC pump. Only disadvantage large batteries, keep them properly maintained. So what I did, I have a 147 amp hour big data center battery on mine, and I use a marine charger to trickle charge it, and I just have all my other stuff wired off of that battery, which works pretty well. And most of the stuff kind of auto kicks over to it, so that works pretty well.
Well, it can only auto kick over to it if you have an automatic transfer switch, or if you run it full time off of an inverter.
Mm-hmm. No, well, okay. So with the Vortex, the drivers kick over. Same with the return pump. Then the Apex has a 12-volt port, which is wired to the battery, so that if it does lose power, it's still powered from the battery. That's how mine's set up.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay, I get what you mean now.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I didn't bother with all the other stuff just because it would suck the battery. I just put the
anything that's got a 12 volt, anything that runs off of 12 volt power, you can hook up directly to the battery,
Yep.
and it will fall back to that basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But an ATS is pretty cheap too. You can get, I mean, if you didn't have that option and they weren't didn't have 12 volt backup devices, maybe it's other power heads, or you just want to hook an Energy Bar 832 onto it, you can get an automatic transfer switch.
How much are they roughly? Like,
depends. The ones for motorhomes are less than $100, I believe.
That's not bad.
And it depends. They have, like I said, they have some that just have 2 inputs. They have some that have 3 inputs. Some of them are built into the converter inverters.
Mm-hmm.
So it just depends. But in my opinion, it's the way to go. And then and then with your Apex, based on time, and some of the, you can use some of the commands to know when the power comes back on, because your other energy bar gets, turned on, etc. Mm-hmm. And what you can do is in the first hour, you can run everything normal, right? And then in hours 2 through 6, you can run your return pump, say at 10% over the amount that'll just bring water back from the sump. Mm-hmm. And then, and bring your power heads down to 50%. And in hours, let's say, from 6 hours on of no power, you basically turn off your return pump and maybe turn it on only, for 10 minutes every hour. And then you only have, power heads on at 10% or something. Yep. So you can basically scale that all the way back, so you can get a lot of time out of your batteries. Mm-hmm. And then at the very end, you just, you can start up your generator and start it all over again.
Yeah, no, for sure. There you go. So earlier in the chat, someone's asking if they should get an Apex if it's worth it. Prime example of all the cool stuff you can do with it. So the new one, the 2016 version, has power monitoring, which is very useful because you can tell, if your pump isn't running. Like on mine, one of the things I do is I monitor the power of the pump, so that if I kick off feed mode, it knows to turn off my skimmer. It can do other stuff off of it. And it's all to see enough how many watts that draws. So there's lots of cool stuff you do with the new one. With the classic, you don't have the power monitoring, which is probably one of the bigger features I think is useful with the new one. Aside from that, there's a couple things like the feature trident and a couple things will only work with the new one. But there's kind of your debate on if you want those extra fancy features or not.
And there's some things you can do in Fusion you can't do in the classic, like some of the module configuration and whatnot. Mm-hmm. You can do directly inside Apex Fusion with the 2016 model, but not in the classic.
Yeah, the new one is definitely easier to set up. It's all the tasks make it pretty quick and easy. Click next, and get it set up rather than you don't have to think about it anymore. ReefDudes, what's going on? Love your tank. Thank you. Appreciate it, Claudius. So as for the nano thing, so what do you think? Do you think your nano tank or your large tank's easier to maintain? Assuming they both had the same type of automation, because I know that will play a role for you, but do you think there's a big difference?
You asking me?
Yes.
Large tank is the easiest tank I've ever had to take care of. Now, the one in my office, I would not count that one because I intentionally don't take care of it well. But if I had to want to keep it like the one that I keep at home,
Hmm.
it would take me much more work than my one at home takes me.
Yeah.
I mean, I go down into my fish cave once a week probably to drain the skimmer cup. And every 2 weeks I clean as I got a wiper in it, so I don't have to worry about cleaning the neck, but I clean the rest of it
Hmm.
every 2 weeks. And I just kind of go down, look around, go, yeah, everything's good. Maybe every 2 weeks I grab, a 5-gallon bucket worth of Kato out of the sump and, and then come back upstairs.
Hmm.
And as far as in the display, I don't really do anything
Hmm.
except clean the glass.
Yeah.
And, once in a while my drains upstairs kind of go nuts for whatever reason. They're kind of finicky on how they're tuned, and that gives me a little bit of a headache. But outside of that, it's the easiest aquarium I've ever had. Now, it wasn't super easy to set up, but super easy to maintain.
Once you get to that place, then you're pretty good. The biggest thing that I found with myself is for me, the coral's the part that's addicting in this hobby. So I started off with a smaller tank, and then I ran out of space for corals. So I'm like, oh, I need a bigger tank, and then you run out of space for corals again, then you want a bigger tank. So that's for me, that's been the part that's kind of like the drug of the hobby is you want more corals and you need more space to put those corals. So that's the biggest thing for large tank. I mean, if you're content just having your little low maintenance tank you don't have to do much with, then a nano is like great for that. But if you get that coral addiction, then you eventually want more and more space for it. So that's another one of the big trade-offs.
I truly think that a lot of the people who eject themselves out of the hobby, right, because it's a pain in the butt or it doesn't give them the success that they want to have in all of this. I truly believe that they actually started with too small of an aquarium.
Yeah.
I truly believe that anything under 40 gallons for sure is an intermediate to expert tank. I mean, outside of just throwing zoanthids into it and doing a ton of water changes, because certainly at 18 months, most of those tanks, even if they're easy to take care of, are going to require a little bit more work on them. And you also can really screw them up just because you're inexperienced and somebody tells you to dump this in or dump that in, and you end up doing it. And so I just have a feeling that for most people to have a great looking one, again, not one like my office right now, but a great looking one, it definitely takes somebody that's more experienced. The real small, if you're just content not doing that much in the aquarium, having some Recordias, some zoanthids, clean out the filter sock and have a decent looking nano, that's probably pretty easy to do. But that's not what most people are looking to do when they go into the fish store. They're looking at the 120-gallon tank and going, that's what I want to do, and I want to do it in this 20-gallon tank.
Yeah. No, it's true. The biggest thing for nano is they're cheap. That's why most people start it, because it's a way to get your feet wet without spending thousands of dollars. Hands down.
It's also that it's 50% that, and it's 50% the spouse factor. So 50% is, well, the cost is often the spouse factor too, but just the space. Where is it in my house? How much is it going to take up? When this thing leaks all over the floor, how many gallons is it going to leak on my floor? That's a big factor in why you get those smaller aquariums.
Yep. Nope, I agree. And then they're easy to get one, wait till they like it, then you get to a bigger one and work your way up slowly.
which ends up costing more than if you had got a big tank, because I started with a 20, and in 6 years I've upgraded slowly to now a 75.
Yep.
And my wife wants a bigger tank. I don't.
That's awesome. She does.
And it's funny that every time she says, "Oh my gosh, the tank is so big," and then a few months later she wants to get a nicer fish, and she's like, "We should have just got a bigger tank."
The funny thing is that the really good local fish stores, the fish stores out there that are really smart, they set up really good displays right in the front of the store and whatnot, that are not displays that somebody like probably myself or you, Devin, would like, which is these huge coral tanks that aren't practical or whatever. They look like your home, right? What would be in your home? They'll set up a little dinette there, or a little sitting area, or whatever, so it looks just like it's in your home, right? But it's like a 250-gallon aquarium at least, okay? And then you walk further back, and Pure Reef in Atlanta is a perfect example of this, if anybody's been to Pure Reef in Atlanta. And then you walk a little bit further back in the store, and there's all the aquariums that again, I'll just say it's the husband because it is an 85% dominated hobby. The husband walks back and it has his mind already that he's going to get a 60 because he knows that's in his budget or what have you. But the wife is sitting up there just kind of relaxing, looking at her phone, and she's in front of a 250-gallon aquarium, and he finally says, okay, here's what we're going to get. We're going to get it all set up and everything. She's like, that little thing?
That's awesome. That's a good strategy.
And it's a really good sales and marketing strategy. And but it is nice to have a wife. I mean, my wife, she has been the one who's made me get a bigger tank every time.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. Nice. I mean, the first tank when I got back in the hobby in 2008 was a 110-gallon tall, and which is a great size, by the way. Anybody who's looking for around 100-gallon tank, I totally recommend. Me personally, the taller tank like that. I think it's a really good size. But anyway, and then I was like, oh, this is great. I got everything all set up. Everything was going good. The tank was looking awesome. Everything's going great. And she's, she'd go out on a reef tour with the club or something. She's like, I just think we need a bigger tank. And I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to have to set up a whole other big tank. And then, one came on the local classifieds where all the reef people put the stuff. I was a 210-gallon full system, everything. And it was like $1,200 or something. It was like a snowy day in February when all my buddies with a U-Haul in Utah, got to go down and pick up this gigantic tank. And so I ran the 210 for a while. And then when we moved out here, we were looking at houses and finally decided on this house. We walked in. One of the first things she said, we walked in the house, had this big entryway. She's like, that's where the aquarium's going to go. And I'm like, those are like 16-foot ceilings, and it's a wall that's 15 feet wide in the entryway, or whatever, 12 feet wide in the entryway.
Giant tank across.
I'm like, do you realize how big of an aquarium I'm going to have there, or it's going to look like a Nano? It's going to look like a joke when you walk into the house. She's like, I don't care. That's where I want to have the aquarium.
That's awesome.
And so the smallest aquarium I could put there is the 400-gallon tank. So
I bet a lot of people wish they had that problem.
Yeah, I know.
My wife gets attached to fish, so
Yeah.
I have no issues like adding smaller fish and then rehoming them because I'm in New York, so it's easy to find other reefers.
Yeah.
So we end up getting these fish, and then when it's time to move them on, she's like, no. So no, I want it. She gets attached to the fish. So our next right now we were looking for homes, and I need a tank that's gonna hold a fully grown Naso. So that's the goal. So that's the minimum. So Live Aquaria says 180, so we're starting at 200. So, but I don't want a high maintenance tank. I really do. I want it simple. So we'll see what happens. She's laughing right now. Yep, she wants a fully grown Naso. So that's
awesome.
the goal. As long as she can keep a fully grown Naso, then she'll
I'm laughing at 180 gallons for a fully grown Naso tank.
Well, yeah. Well, we went to a fish store the other day, and she saw a fully grown Naso. So that's why now it's at least 180, because I've never seen a fully grown Naso before. And I tell her the Live Aquaria recommendations is a minimum. So we saw an almost fully grown Naso the other day, and she didn't realize it got so big. So I think we'll start at 2. Yes, that thing is huge.
300. Let's go big.
Who's gonna maintain it though? You see,
You.
that's what I worry about. Yeah. Okay.
She gets to enjoy it. You get to maintain it. See, my wife doesn't care what size it is, but I can only have 2 tanks. That's somehow what I got roped into for an agreement.
The thing you have to realize, though, when those big fish, though, is big fish means big poop. And especially with tanks who are eating all the time and have, high metabolisms. And that means that you're going to have a lot of nutrient export in some way, shape, or form in a tank of, a display tank of 200 gallons because there's going to be a lot of poop going into that tank.
Yep.
Her requirements are you cannot have a tank without clownfish, and you cannot have a tank without a dory. Anything else is totally optional. So it's up to me to figure out the rest. But as long as it can hold a fully grown Naso, you can't have those are the requirements. Everything else is she doesn't care about the lights, the equipment. That's it. So those are the requirements. So anything else I have to figure out myself.
That's funny. Well, at least she supports future upgrades. I think most guys got to battle and bribe their ways for that.
Oh, and Euphilia, lots of. That's why more than half of my tank is different Euphilia. I came home today and I have some new Euphilia, so that's why more than half my tank is Euphilia. So
She likes all the movement.
I can live with that though. I can live with that. Listen, I spend a lot of on different stuff for the tank, so I can live with it.
Mm-hmm.
I can. That's a good trade off for me. It's a good problem to have.
That's a fair trade. I feel Euphilia are pretty easy to use. I mean, that's for just on the nano side of things. That's another good one for small tanks because they don't really need a lot of attention. They're not super picky like a lot of the SPS are. So, and they fill up a small area quick. So I mean, you can like make your tank look pretty mature in a hurry. The only downside is eventually that's going to mean it's overgrowing your tank. So
I mean, I'm somewhere and I can't. But today we had a disagreement, so there is a tape in the middle of the aquarium now. His side, my side, your side. So that's hilarious.
You lost half your tank today.
I came home today and I apparently I never owned it. So there's and the tape is not in the middle. I have like a third. That's not half. So this is her side and my side. So we'll see what happens with that.
Do you try and tell the fish to stay on the right half? How's your nano doing? You got the little circle axle, I think it's called, tank.
Atoll, the
Atoll, thank you.
Marine 14-gallon Atoll.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing okay. No substrate. Tonga branch rock. I just have a single. It's only been up a few weeks. I am getting like I think a diatom bloom. So I think it's
That's
just
part
going
of the process.
Yeah, our early stages.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I absolutely didn't think about is the fact that because I have no substrate, I need space for bacteria. So, I have to put a couple more of those Marine Pure little bio balls in the back because I only have a couple in there now. So I have to put some more. And then I'm trying to keep this tank simple because I tend to be the type of person that junks up their tank. So the other nano, I have an apex, I have all kind of things. There's a bunch of wires hanging out the back. So this I'm trying to keep simple. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm adding a skimmer tomorrow. I'm adding the Reef glass skimmer. I'm adding a mini refugium. See, it's already going bad. The simplicity is already gone. But
yeah.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited for it. This is going to be an SPS only nano.
Is it?
So we'll see how that goes.
I'm back and forth, to be honest. I have a hard time picking one because when it comes down to it, I'm like, oh, I like this coral, and then that's what's going in, which is kind of, I don't know. I have a hard time sticking to just one, like, species or of coral.
So I have another. What makes it easy is my son has another. The kids have another nano in their bedroom, so that is going to transition to a softy only tank,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll put all the SPS in this tank. And hopefully, kind of in my head, the plan is to start with some colonies, grow the tank for let's say a year, and then move them into when I shut it down in a year or so, move those colonies over to the bigger tank. So that's the plan I have now in my head. So we'll see. Yes, I'm going to keep it SPS only. I'm going to keep it SPS only. High flow, no substrate. Stick water changes, no Triton method, nothing funny, nothing funky, just water changes and see how that goes.
How do you like the bare bottom tank, like the look like that? I've always considered it, but I always just break down like, nope, sounds going in. So I'm curious.
So, the other day I actually had to change a piece of rock out of my kid's nano. And I was surprised when I moved the substrate, how much like stuff just came out of the substrate into the water. So that scared me a little bit. So I was actually kind of glad I made the decision to go with bare bottom here. So I'm happy with the decision for bare bottom, but in my main tank, I have animals that turn over the substrate. I have I think I have an engineer goby in there somewhere. I have some cucumbers. So I have things, and I slowly turn over the substrate. In the nano, I never thought about it. So I like the no substrate. I'm really. It doesn't look bad. I glued some Innovative Marine has some leveling mats that I glued to the bottom. So when you're looking at the bottom, it doesn't look like stark white.
Yeah.
It's bare bottom, but I'm gonna put some encrusting corals there. But
nice.
Yeah, I thought I would hate it. I think all the other times I've seen bare bottom tanks, I hated it because I always imagine growing up on, whenever you go to the beach, you see sand. So to me, it was inconceivable to have a reef tank without sand.
Mm-hmm.
But now I kind of like it. You can see anytime detritus collects in one area. So every time now you just go in and siphon it out.
Yep.
But
So, question: the tank that you said had like a disaster stuff. Did you ever vacuum the sandbed in that tank or no?
no, I never
Ever?
Well, what
Okay.
happens every time I need to do kind of, every few months, I'll go in and take a third of it and just run my hand through the sand.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I don't vacuum the sand bed. No.
Yeah.
I think I have 4 or 5 different sea cucumbers, and you come out every morning and you see where the cucumber like went through the sand, how they pass it through their body. It's in little pellets.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a good job of at least the areas that I see that I can see. They
Yep.
turn it over pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But the Nano the other day, when I put my hand in it and moved it, like there was a lot of, we feed pellets. So it looked like it was pellets and whatever it was. The water was cloudy from just churning up a little area of substrate.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everybody in a Nano feeds them too much. I mean, I put food in this 10-gallon in my tank once every month.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
I've got 2 fish in it and a purple lobster, but I mean, they live because there's so much stuff going on in it. And as far as bare bottom or sand, I think it's kind of like, are you a person who enjoys a split window Volkswagen bus slammed, or do you like it old school original? I mean that's
Which one's which?
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think slowly over time, I think it's a one in sandbed. I think I am going to slowly take the sand out. Like I'm just going to leave a dusting or leave sand. I think I have some gobies,
Mm-hmm.
a gobies and a pistol shrimp. So I will leave one section for a pistol shrimp,
Yep.
but I'm going to slowly remove the sand from that system over time.
Just have a little corner of sand.
Yes.
Yeah. Point your power heads to push it all to one side, and then just see what happens.
I mean, the best bare bottom I've seen is at Worldwide, and it's amazing. Okay. But as far as an overall aesthetic, it's not for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
just an unnatural aesthetic. It looks really interesting, and it's amazing all the different corals that they have kind of coming together on the, on the bricks or whatever they have on the bottom. They have as a hard substrate down there, and the stuff grows on. It's certainly very interesting, but I think it's put aside the. I think there's pluses and minuses to the efficacy of doing it. But other than that, I think it's a personal choice. I mean, in the sand, in every aquarium I have, I mean, there's so many spaghetti worms that are coming up out of the sand and collecting detritus, overnight, and and so many things going on and living in the sand, so many different pieces of microfauna that I think are important, to a lot of different animals in the aquarium. Clearly, the Worldwide Corals guys are proof that it's not necessary to have a great aquarium. But I think it's sixes as far as the efficacy of having an aquarium, and past that, it's whether or not you whether or not you like it. I think probably in the smallest of aquariums, for people especially that overfeed, it's probably leans maybe 70% to a better way of going, because you can vacuum that stuff out easier, and most people overfeed.
Yeah. Quick shout out, Reefer Gill sent me a super chat. Thank you so much. That is awesome. Much appreciated. I had another really cool idea, which I think would be wicked too for those that like sand but want to do bare bottom. If somebody wanted to get extra kind of fancy, if you took a bunch of like fresh sand into a layer and poured some epoxy over it, you would have a nice flat solid surface with nothing would stick to, and it would look like it has sand. I think that'd be something cool to do if you want to try it. In a small tank, it might be worth the experiment, but it'd be kind of a cool way to do it, because then you'd have the bare bottom benefits and it would still look like it had sand. I mean, it'd probably be pretty flat sand, but be kind of cool way to do it.
And I love wrasses, and I think wrasses need sand.
Mm-hmm.
They live in the sand. I know. Yep. I've seen,
some do, not all.
Yeah, some do. I've seen wrasses. Some of them try to, they sleep in like corners, but some wrasses need sand. I would never do it in a main display. I wouldn't. Mm-hmm. But the bare bottom, to kind of lessen, it's 3 tanks now. So to kind of lessen maintenance, I think bare bottom in the nanos are the way to go, or at least as little sand as possible.
Yeah. So method was saying microfauna and bacterial plankton is key with sand. Over 400 pounds in my tank. Fish safe epoxy. If you use just like there's like kind of gel epoxies. They use it for like you see them use it in tables where they fill it in like wood where there's all kind of textures like that type of stuff. They have food grade stuff which would be fine for a tank. So I think that'd be cool to do if someone wants to try it. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit tempted. Bare bottom versus sand. Yeah. I mean, both work, both have benefits. For me, sand for looks. On the other side, it also, as much as yes, there can be some tritus and other stuff gets trapped, it also holds a ton of surface area for good bacteria. So I mean, half of my little nano tank, I literally just took a hose and siphoned it into the nano tank, and there's 80% of my live bacteria right there. Ozone with the skimmer, SCA called it safe. Nice. No, it's good to hear engineering aquariums. Sand sifting goby boom. Okay, the only downfall of sand sifting gobies, some of them do an amazing job of keeping your sand bed looking pristine and great. But if you have a lot of corals in your sand bed, sometimes they make dust storms and they just cover your corals in sand. So one of those trade-offs. Make sure your corals are up on rocks. What's going on, Ash? Or if you have one, yeah, just make sure you don't have a ton of stuff on your sand bed because it will drive you nuts because it'll constantly get covered in sand.
I also get worried about sand sifting gobies because I have 2 mandarins in a 75, which I think is a little bit of a stretch. I don't think they're starving, and I wouldn't want anything to potentially compete with them for food. So that's one of the reasons I've considered but stayed away from sand sifting gobies.
Mm-hmm.
If someone out there kind of has some experience with the fact maybe they don't compete for food, I'd be happy to hear. But that's my reasoning of not getting a sand sifting goby now.
Yeah, well, mandarins mainly eat pods, right? Where sand sifting gobies will eat all the other little particles in your sand as they sift it. So you might be able to get away with it. Although on the flip side though, like I probably throw it in my tank, but I also add a bottle of pods every like month or so. Like I supplement it all the time. Not that I need to, but I just do it because I culture them anyway. So I have tons, so I do it. So it's kind of those trade-offs. Yeah, engineering, you're asking about ozone in the SCA skimmer. Just email the company and ask if it's ozone safe acrylic or not. It depends what kind of acrylic it's made with. Yellow Watchman Goby doesn't do jack. Yeah, mine's not really a sifter. Jawfish does enough damage. Yeah, jawfish do a pretty good job. They always, I had one for a while. And yeah, there's big mouthfuls out as they're building their cave, and they do a pretty good job. For the jawfish, if anyone doesn't have one, I used to have a blue spotted jawfish. Those guys are cool. Probably one of my favorite jawfishes. Very pretty. Same thing, they're jumpers though, so make sure you got a good lid on. For Gil, so how's everyone else's going? So I'm still curious with the Nano Challenge. I know a lot of the people in the chat are partaking in it. O's got his going. DC, I saw your video stream the other day. It was looking pretty good. Ash, for Gil, lots going on in the chat.
The Reefer Gills, I saw a video on his sump, and his is it's an amazing. I don't remember the company that did his, but it was amazing. The colors and everything. It was well thought out.
And it matches the Neptune colors. Yeah,
I'm expecting my Synergy Reef sump to be delivered in like a couple of weeks, so I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna lie, like seeing your Synergy one and Reefer Gill's sump, like they look pretty primo and nice. I've always just went with glass just because it's cheap, but you guys tempt me with these fancy acrylic ones that look so pristine and polished.
So Synergy Reef, this sump, I'm still amazed at the price. So it's $400 for it's a refugium sump, and they made it to fit in the Red Sea tank. But I've emailed a few, places. Advanced Acrylic is one that have built things for me in the past, and no one is able to come close to that price.
Yeah.
So that is a good value for that. I don't know if they're doing something where they've pre-made a few or what it is, or maybe they've made the molding. So they're doing something to get that
Well,
399.
if they're standard sizes for all their sumps, like you pick, they likely either just have like a CNC or a laser cutter that goes and zips them out pretty quick, which would streamline it. Unless it's something custom, right? Then they gotta pre-do it. That's kind of my guess.
Yeah. Yep.
But laser cutters are amazing. Like I have a little dinky one I've been playing with on my 3D printer. But if you have enough higher power ones, just cuts out like perfect shapes, perfect designs out of acrylic. They're pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Laser cutters can be an issue sometimes on some acrylic too. So some of the guys are not using laser cutters actually.
Oh,
They're still
really?
using yeah, because it does crazing.
Mm.
It'll create crazing.
Okay, so CNC is the safer way. Get a nice clean edge.
Mm.
I'm gonna have to build one of those one day now. Kind of tempted. Did I get my YouTube video out? No, I'm still waiting to get my proper nano. I did a nano tank. I just filmed a video the other day as I was setting up my nano. I'm gonna do a proper one once I actually get the new nano. This is my temporary one, only because I had a buddy coming in and out of town that was picking up a couple of fish for me. So I'm like, oh, they need a home now. I'll never catch them or find them if I put in my big tank. So temporary nano. Still waiting for the pristine one. It's coming though. Don't you worry. Roofing with though, uploading yours now. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm uploading my video as we speak.
Nice.
So, all right. So yep. Oh,
did you guys all watch the Christmas video from Coral 12G, Coralfish 12G?
No. Did he do a big song one again?
Oh, he did an Apex one, and it was pretty funny.
Oh, I'll check it out later.
Christmas video from Coralfish 12G.
Nice.
He got a bunch of spots on NAS 1-minute videos recently too.
Oh, really?
Related to the reef keeping thing. He did one called "Coral's the New Bitcoin," and I killed my pet at least 10 times was another one.
Oh wow, nice. The NAS Daily. This is a new Bitcoin. Okay, I'll watch that one afterwards.
Awesome. So both of those are pretty funny, and but the one he did for Christmas for him putting his Apex on his tank in his dorm room was just classic. He's got over 60,000 views on it, I think. Already.
Oh wow, that's
at least 50,000.
nice.
Yeah, I did see that. Okay, I did see that one. Yes.
Okay, I'll check that one out.
Pretty darn funny.
Yes, it was.
Nice. Bitcoins is the new coral. Well, they're both probably addicting. Out of curiosity, do any of you guys have Bitcoins?
Nope.
No. I am completely unrelated, but I started trying to mine them a few days ago or last week. I put my video card to work, so I literally have to like pause my computer to like host a live stream. Otherwise, my computer goes to a crawl because all its resources are mining. So, anyways, completely unrelated topic. Too many hobbies. Bitcoins pay for corals. But if anyone else wants to try it, if you got a good video card, there's potential there. But yeah, corals are definitely the addiction of this hobby. I don't know about any of you guys in the chat. I think a lot of people like the pretty colors of fish to get sucked in, and then you get your tank. And all those fish tanks, you add a few corals, and you want more corals, and it completely takes over. That's all you want is more corals. Ice surfing with an Apex. Nice. No Bitcoins? Yeah. I don't have any yet. I haven't been paid out yet. I'm up to 25 bucks and almost there. Yes. Like such a minuscule amount, but finish making the video and upload on Instagram. It's kind of good to see all these nanos in the works. I'm curious to see what all you guys come up with. Only 26 just under the Red Sea 350.
The Red Sea tank I like.
Yeah.
However, Sump is a little bit weird because there's like a column and it's not in the middle, it's off to the right. I like the Red Sea tank, the all-in-one. I wish I had gone with something else, but I love it. I just don't like the Sump.
Wait,
but
you're talking about your 60-something gallon tank?
70, let's say 75.
Okay.
Yeah, but I like.
It's not an all-in-one though. It has a sump, right? Yeah.
It has a sump.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it has a sump, but it's yeah, the sump is a little bit weird. Just the column, like the entire bottom sump area is not open. It has like a partition, and the partition is not in the middle. It's like off center. So it split the cabinet into like thirds. So 1/3 is like a cabinet for a chiller or electronics, and then the other 2/3 is a sump.
Yeah.
So and then the overflow's in the middle. So it's a little bit weird. I like the tank. Before we had just the standard Aquarium tank and pine stand and one salt creep and stuff that it looked kind of ugly in the living room. So we wanted something nice. So that's why I got it. It's just
The Red Sea,
to,
the
yeah,
Red
the
Seas
red.
are nice tanks. They're nice and polished. They got all the polished edges and stuff. Like they do make a nice premium tank.
Absolutely.
Somebody
Why
was.
can't we? Why you can't post images in your chat, huh?
No, YouTube doesn't allow you.
That's dumb.
I know. And links are even a pain in the butt to post the Hangout links now. They keep trying to add all this extra security stuff that makes life a pain. Someone was asking in the chat about how keeping a Wrasse without a sand bed. That is a bit challenging because they do like to sleep in the sand. I have seen people just put sand in a corner or just put like a little container full of sand in their tank, but yeah, put a sand bed in. I don't know if there's any other strategies, but
Again, it depends on the Wrasse, though. So,
yeah.
for instance, like a flame Wrasse doesn't sleep in the sand, but a Christmas Wrasse does, or a Melanaris Wrasse does. So it just depends. Not all of them sleep in the sand. Most of the flasher Wrasses and whatnot, I don't believe sleep in the sand. It's the other Wrasses that do.
Yeah. My blue streak doesn't, but my leopard Wrasse does. So another example. So on the leopard Wrasse, like for that, like it's amazing how well they hide in the sand. I didn't see mine for a week when I added it, and I was over at my buddy's house, and I guess we'll finish the video on this, but he got a 180 gallon bow front tank, and so we moved his 90 gallon to his 180 gallon across the room, and same thing. We're like, oh, where's this one fish? He's literally laying sideways, buried. It was a red chorus wrasse. He was literally laying sideways, hiding himself in the sand. It's amazing, and there's like hardly any water left in the tank. It's just amazing how they'll hide themselves in like the tiniest little places. And he was a huge wrasse too.
Some of the Wrasses actually will spin like a mucus cocoon in the rock that they'll sleep in.
Oh, really?
That's what
does.
That's what the 6-line does, I think. I don't think the 6-line sleeps in the sand per se. He sleeps in a little cocoon that he makes for himself.
I did not know that. That's kind of cool. And they do that in the rock, like not in the sand. They just
they'll find a little crevice in the rock, and then they'll make somehow or another bunch of mucus, and it's a kind of a protective barrier when they sleep in the crevices.
Huh? Very crazy. Someone's asking, getting back to sand. Have you guys had any experience acting up as an elk sink and started to harden up? Not personally, but I have heard people having that.
Oh, you've had that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had that happen. It happens a lot of times early on in the cycle of an aquarium. You'll see that happen. And sometimes some of the speculation is it has something to do with fauna as well, some of the microfauna, in order to that basically help it to calcify in the sand. I don't know all the reasons behind it, but definitely there's a bunch of stuff written out there on why the phenomenon happens.
I'm not gonna lie, at times it'd be nice so I'd stop getting sand dunes from the pumps, but that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I've never had it happen to me, but I've heard of it happening where they say it's literally like a hard cap on top.
Well, it's not always even on top. Sometimes it's just you'll get a coating on the top, and then down deeper in the sand bed, it'll just be just a huge chunk. I had it in my I probably still have some in my large tank right now.
Yeah. One actually weird thing, I don't know what kind of creature does it, but sometimes I get like little like tubes of sand almost in my tank. But it's like squishy, like it's almost like you're saying like those mucus layers or something. It's almost like that of sand. And
that's actually the encasing for a spaghetti worm of some sort, is what it is.
But large ones, like the size of like your finger type of deal?
Oh, that big?
Yeah, I've had like every once in a while I find these little like chunks of like gooey, almost like a sand log or something. I'm like, what the heck? I have no idea what it is. There's never really a thing inside of it. I've sucked a couple out during a water change. It's like kind of weird one.
Did you taste it?
No, can't be good for you.
Yeah, it's only way you can really tell. That's what I hear.
Okay. Rico said to say, "What's up? Have to run. I'll see him at Reefdudes in Florida. Awesome stream. Thanks, Rico. See you later." Terrence, Rico says, "What's up?" Dev, what are your thoughts on feather duster worms? I like them. They're easy. They're filter feeders. I have a coco worm in my tank. I had a feather duster, but something ate it head off one day. One of my fish. But
if you're lucky enough, get some. You can get them from people who really have a good population of them in their sumps and whatnot, and they really are helpful in filtering out the water. I'm not talking about the big ones that you buy. Generally, the big ones that you buy at a local fish store are going to die. That's pretty much probably 90% guarantee, 95% guarantee that they won't be living past 6 months. But the little ones to the medium-sized ones, I mean, I have some that are now even up in my display in some of the darker places that are 1.5 inches around, maybe up to some of them up to almost 2 inches around that just grew on their own.
Mhm.
Those are really good for the aquarium.
Yeah. Good
I
little
think
filter
Mile
feeders.
Reefers is a YouTuber who I see them. They're all over his tank,
Mhm.
and it doesn't look like. Yeah, he has the really small ones that Terrence just described. They're all over his tank. Yeah, and he didn't the amount that he has, he didn't buy those and put them there. So they got there. Maybe he had a few and they just multiplied. But they don't seem to be in like the dark places, but they look really good when they open. They look beautiful. Open
Yeah.
a little.
Yeah, I should post up some pictures and some video maybe. And I've got a couple of rocks where they're just like a forest of little feather dusters out there, and in the current they just look really cool. So I'm happy I have them there. I know as soon as I get a couple of different fish that probably I'll have down the road, like a couple of different butterfly fish or whatever, they'll be gone. I mean, they'll just scarf those things right up. They'll be toast.
Yeah.
Did you buy those, Terrence, or they just came in on a piece of rock?
No, I got a couple of pieces of seed rock and macroalgae from my buddy Robert at Neptune Aquatics when I was setting the tank up. And they actually started to seed themselves in the sump. That was stuff I put in the sump. And then eventually they just worked their way all the way up into the display and started taking off in different little areas. Generally, they're in darker areas of my tank because my lights are obviously really bright for what I grow in the tank. So I think they don't generally like to be up in the upper parts of the tank because of that. But yeah, now there's some good forests of them in different places in the bottom of some of the base rock.
Nice. So in the comments, Ash is asking, Terrence, what equipment do you run on your small nano tanks?
So the small nano tank that I have here, I actually started running a Pima pump in it in the first one when we started looking to make that a product. So the first prototype, then that was just over 3 years ago. And then I changed it out when we got the shipping version of that, which was, I don't know, maybe 16 months ago. And so the return pump on there is running just that particular thing. And then it's just got a filter sock in it. It's an Innovative Marine 10. As far as other equipment in it, I've been running one of these new little mini power heads from Hydor because I wanted to play with it and try it out. So it's running that for circulation in the tank. And then I got a little fan over the top of it because in the summertime it gets kind of hot when we're not here in the offices. And then, of course, I got a bunch of Apex stuff on it. I've got an Apex Classic on here. Yeah, I think I got an Apex Classic on here with ORP, all of that kind of stuff. And then I've got an XR15 light over it, and one of the WXMs on somebody else's tank is controlling it.
Nice. Oh, it is you're in the office right now?
Yeah, I'm in
Okay,
the office. And so the thing is that we have obviously so many different things going on in here. We've got to kind of control the WXMs because they only have 2 channels, or I should say our WXM only has 2 channels. There's more channels kind of available in that thing, but we only have 2 channels available. And so you can have issues with crosstalk and people turning your lights off. And so we have to manage it kind of carefully.
Too many reefers in a small area.
You can't have all those people on different, all having their own WXM or it's going to be a problem. So that's what I'm running on the tank.
Nice.
I have an Apex related question. I have a PMUP that I used for like a reactor and stuff. Can I get a power supply and use it? It's the one that you just plug it directly into. I used to plug it into EBA 32. Can I get a power supply?
Yes.
Okay, when you just mentioned that, I need a stronger pump for my Nano, and the PMUP fits perfectly, and I never thought about it until you said that.
Now, the only thing I'd say is, and I haven't had a problem with this on mine, and that's why when I should say on my Nano, I did have a problem in my sump on my big tank, is I would put a kind of a coarse filter sock over the top of it. Those, not filter sock, but filter screen, whatever those things are that you put like carbon in, over it to keep any small critters from going inside because it can cause a problem, of jamming it up kind of a thing. So you wouldn't want that to happen. And generally the back of a lot of those nanos get kind of nasty. I never had one fail in mine. I've gone through 2 of them. Like I said, the original prototype and the actual shipping version I'm on now. Never had one jam up or have a problem in my tank there. But at home in my sump, I think I had baby stomatella or something get into one and jammed it up and burned it up. So it's definitely it's probably a good idea to put it inside one of those kind of filter bag things, or fashion a sponge filter over the top of the intake.
Okay.
So, just carve one out from something.
You know what? That's a good point, because I've actually broken a couple of impellers on these. I've never. I run like a completely open system, snails everywhere, no socks, no kind of mechanical filtration at all. It's just. Yes. So I've broken 2 impellers, but
that's probably why. Because like stomatellas are notorious for this, right? They get into everything, and they have their shells are just small enough to get into stuff, and just big enough to jack things up.
Yeah. Okay, question for you, Terrence. Reefer Gill, can Terrence tell us if we can run 2 pumps and a Core 20 off an EB832?
two wave pumps and a Core 20. First of all, you can't run the Core 20 off of an 832 because there's no driver. I mean, the driver that connects up to one link is for the 15. So there's no real way to connect the 20 up to. I'm assuming the 24 volt side or the one link side of the 832. You can run a 15 and 2 wave pumps on an 832 through one link. However, it will throttle back the wave pumps in terms of not allowing them to run full tilt 100% on the system, because it would be drawing too much power for the 100-watt power supply. But most people, that's not a problem, because they're usually running some mode, right, on those pumps, like some sort of a tidal mode or something like that on the wave pumps, or they're not running them at 100%, or they're not running their return pump at 100%. And so that's why it's still usable. It's just you can't run everything at 100%. Okay.
Nope. There you go. Hopefully that answered you, Reefer Gill. How long do you plan to run the stream for? Wife wants me to come eat. What time is it? It's probably about 20 more minutes. Then I'll gotta go pick up my wife.
I gotta roll here in a minute too, but I'll hang out for a couple more questions or whatever.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Terrence, on if you got any Neptune related stuff, ask it in the chat. And my town today. Shout out for Pelfrey.
I'm just thinking again. I know a couple of us in the Nano were looking to use like the random flow generator from Vivid Aquatics. And one of the things with these, you have to have a good pump that can handle head pressure. And just thinking like this PMUP might be perfect for it, because it can handle the head pressure well. And I'm probably going to get a lot of good flow on the Nano with like the random flow generator with the PMUP. So I'm liking this idea more and more the more I think about it.
I think it would be a great thing to try. I think the PMUP does have, if you saw my recent video on the ATK from other ATOs, I actually had a little test there showing the head pressure capability of the PMUP. So I think you're spot on. I think it does, I can't remember, it's 150 or 100, I should know, gallons per hour. But in a small tank where you've got no real fittings but one little tube, that thing's going to be moving a lot of water. I mean, it's going to have serious turnover in a tank. And, with that, that what is it? It's from Vivid Creative. What's it called? Yep. I should know.
Vivid Creative Aquatics.
Yeah, Vivid Creative Aquatics. That little product, I got one of those on my big display tank, and so far it's been great. And I think you put that thing on the back of a little Nano, you won't have any intrusion into the tank, and you'll get some random flow out of it. And I think you might even have to put a clamp on the PMUP, maybe. Who knows?
We'll see what happens. I mean, if it works out well, I use like a little power head, like a little Jabo power head on the other side. I might be able to turn that off. Because
if you're not running, like when you run a lot of SPS in the tank, and it's just going to be an LPS type nano tank, if that's the case, then definitely, don't need that much flow.
Okay, 2 questions. One question. With the PMUP, it's 24 volts, I believe, right? Would it be
That's correct.
Would it be safe to run at a lower voltage to control the flow?
No, it's not really. It's
Okay.
not really recommended to do that. I mean, you can get away with it, and it probably would run down at probably down to like 17, 18 volts. It's not generally recommended.
That's fair. I was just curious.
I don't personally know what the ramifications would be from it because I'm not an engineer and I didn't design that particular pump's motor drive technology.
On those random flow generators, had one for like a week. I still got installed. I'm actually curious. A lot of you guys are running them, so I actually did get some nano size one for the tank, and I got a big one for my big tank. So I'm curious. I tried 3D printing my own a while ago, so I'm curious to see how this one compares to it. But lots of you guys seem to love them, so.
So what, you ripped off his design?
No. I found an already designed one. And then I got one of his as well. So this one is not really random though. It's more of like a flow inductor that has a little bit of stuff to it, but so I'm really curious.
It's random. It's random.
That's cool. That's cool.
Random. I mean, I can see the disturbance on the surface of my water.
Yeah.
You can see it up. I can put my hand in front of it, and sometimes it'll kind of sequence, and then the sequence will change, and so it's definitely random.
Yeah. No, that is pretty cool.
I'm running one on the innovative on the Fortean Peninsula, like the soft tank. That's the only flow on that tank. I just had to upsize the pump significantly because the stock pump is, it wasn't a very good pump. Like one of the ways it wasn't a good pump. So I had to upsize the pump. It's just that on the circular tank, it's hard finding a pump that can handle head pressure that fits in that spot. I've measured and I've had 2 pumps now and they don't fit. But while you guys were talking, I tried the PMUP and it's a perfect fit into sort of the return slot because it's a circular tank. So when they cut the sump, it's not like the rectangular tank. You don't have a full section. It's kind of cut off. So the PMUP perfectly. And with the random flow generator, I think it puts extra back pressure on the pump somehow. And to get truly good performance from it, you need a pump with good head pressure. And I think this is perfect. Yep.
Yeah, so do they really work? So that's the theory behind it. Lots of people seem to love them. I'll probably actually do it the next day or two. Okay, the bad thing about being a YouTuber is you feel obligated to make videos and everything. So I've literally had it sit on my counter for a week. I haven't put it on yet because I want to make a video when I first do it to kind of before and after and compare. So that's the terrible part, but maybe I'll do it for my Monday, next videos for Monday. So since you want to ask.
If there is a downside to them, I think they do grow algae on them easier than other stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it is the material. You know how some materials tend to grow algae. So I did just clean mine off recently. It cleaned up really easily. I took it out, threw it in vinegar for a couple hours, and then scrubbed it with a toothbrush, and it came clean. But I because they have a rough finish, means they have a lot of more surface area and stuff to for algae to grab onto. I think, and maybe even the material itself is how algae is. It's like certain things better than others. So if there was anything that was a downer about it, I would say it would be that, but it's not much.
They're made out of PETG, which is a food grade plastic. So I mean, it's probably literally just because it's extruded. You got those tiny little ridges for all the layers. And that's probably what it catches onto. So yeah, no, I'm interested to try it now. Especially you guys keep talking about it. You're just making me want to try it more and more. Hope maybe tomorrow. Let me know.
It works. It works. So I think you'll be happy with it.
Yeah. Let me know how the core is. Switch on my L1 in a heartbeat because Neptune products are far superior and I cannot wait for a Trident. Any info on the official date yet? All right, everyone always asks that question. Terrence is probably sick of it, but tentatively summer. No official date. Random flow and turf scrubber all in one. Bonus. Yeah, this will be good. So, Seymour, what kind of, you have an M1 on your tank?
Yes.
And you have an RFG. What percentage are you running your pump at?
I am in a terrible situation. I don't think it's fair for me to answer that question because I have a poorly designed manifold.
That's fair. I'm just curious, just for like a rough.
I'm running my Vectra M1 at 100% now, but I'm running a manifold, and that's one of the reasons for the Sump upgrade. I have a core that I pre-ordered that's coming because the Sump return pump slot is really narrow, and the core. Well, thank you, Terrence, for answering my question. I sent you the question on the Neptune System forum, but I'm gonna have a core in return, no manifold. If I need to run a manifold, I'll get a separate pump to do it, because
Yep.
that just causes me issues, especially with balancing.
Mhm.
And so I've just decided to just remove that
It's what I
head.
try to tell. It's absolutely what I try to tell people. I mean, forget the redundancy for a second. It's a pain in the butt. I don't care what anybody says. It's a pain in the butt. If you want to run your equipment, your whatever, you got 2 or 3 things on there, and you change the flow for whatever reason, for a feed mode, or you up the flow on one thing, the flow drops on another thing. I've done it. I had it on my 210 that way, and yeah, it seems to be cheaper, but
Mhm.
it's more of a pain in the butt.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm running a Vectra at M1 at 100%, and I'm getting 300 gallons to the display. I know plumbing has a lot to do with it.
Mhm.
300 to the display, 100 to each to a reactor, another 100 to a mini refugium. And I think I can get a lot more than that if I just had one pump go into the
Yeah.
display, getting good turnover, and then another pump. I'm not even going to do a manifold. I'll just use separate pumps to just run a reactor and run any other device that I need to. I think it'll make maintenance a lot easier.
Mhm.
It'll make just my life easier.
For
Um,
me, I try and make my tank as quiet as possible, and just the battle of trying to balance that flow for your overflows would drive me nuts. So I always recommend running a separate tank for your manifold and just for your display. At least depending on your overflow style, but with the Bean Animal style, because I have mine tuned perfectly so you don't hear a thing. And if you had a reactor it clogs up, that's going to change your water levels and it's going to become noisy. I
yeah.
mean,
So
yeah.
I've only been running it at 100% for just a little, just a week or so now.
Mhm.
Just a little bit now, but I'm gonna turn it down. It was just a little bit of a test, but I'm gonna turn it down. And the pump isn't any more noisier, but I think just if I was gonna pay, another $300 or whatever for a pump, I just
Mhm.
wanted to be sure. I needed to have justification in my head that not using a manifold is gonna be a good thing. So
Mhm.
I pretty much confirmed my, you know, running the pump at 100% only gave me like a margin. I literally calculated. I think I got just a few more gallons per hour out of it running from 70% to maybe 100%. So I'm going to turn it down and I'll just go with, separate. It's just better.
Yeah. No.
Better redundancy too. If my return pump fails or something, I'll have a backup. I think it's just better. There's too many reasons to list now. I just think it was.
Just do it.
I'm glad I did it because now I know better. But long
Just
term,
do
I
it.
don't think
Mhm.
it's the way to.
Quick question for Terrence while you're still on. Ash is asking, what head height can the core handle?
So an interesting thing with that is that uh, you can't just look at what the head height on a pump is, because there's a lot, there's more factors to it involved in that, right? So um, the short answer to your question, which may or may not be helpful, is that the Core 15 has a max head height of about 14 feet, and the Core 20 has a max head height of about 21 feet. Is that super helpful? I don't necessarily believe so, because at 21 feet with the Core 20, you've got zero flow. So what you really want to look at is how am I going to plumb my tank, or how is my tank plumbed, and what is the true head pressure on my particular tank, and then look at the graph that's available, for instance, on the core, or on most any pump that's worth anything. They'll have a graph there,
Mhm.
and you'll see what kind of actual flow rate you're going to get. So that curve is what you really want to look at. And different types of pumps have different kinds of curves. Now, most DC pumps more or less have the same shape curve, and so what that means is that they're made to give you flow, not high pressure. That said, I do know people in our NSI group that are running second floor, from downstairs with their Core 20s. Are they going to get extreme amounts of flow in their display? Absolutely not, because it's not its intended purpose. But it's one of those things where what you want to do with your pump matters most first, and then you can look to see the graph and see how what pump is the right pump for you.
Yeah. Now, on the random pump topic, after one of our previous streams, we were talking about the dual pumps and running them at half speed. I'm seriously considering putting two on my. I know it's extremely overkill, but I'm considering doing two return pumps with two different outputs, like one on each side of the overflow for the next rebuild.
Yeah, I think it's a smart idea. I think it's just the whole idea of one thing goes down, then the other one can run it. You want to clean a pump, you can clean one of the pumps while the other one's still running. There's a lot of benefit there. Now, a lot of people out there will say, well, yeah, you say that because you're selling pumps, or you'll say that because you can afford it, I can't afford it. Well, at least on the latter thing, I can tell you the hobby's not cheap. So you can, there's plenty of ways. I'm not going to say that your way is wrong, because there's plenty of ways to have a great experience in the hobby. But if you want to fly radio control airplanes, you can have a really great, super awesome special digital radio, or you can have one that just works, and both of them will let you fly that aircraft. But one way is going to be, in the end, much more pleasurable for you and much easier.
It has a
and much
better
easier to maintain
gyroscope and self-corrects versus you crashing.
yeah, or whatever. And so because we get a lot of that, right? Well, of course you're going to recommend that, and I recommend it because I truly believe this is the kind of the best way to go. And if you look, and Ryan from BRS, who's a friend of mine, and we talk a lot about reefs all the time. And his videos, the same thing. It's like, well, this is the way we think it's probably a great way to do it. You don't have to do it this way. It's going to cost you more money, but I know this is going to work, and I know this is going to be a great way of doing it. So, I think, if everybody could afford it, do I think you should go out and buy an Abyss pump? Absolutely. It's a great product. Okay. If you can afford to go out and, and buy a Tesla, great. Go out and buy a Tesla, instead of buying the Honda to get the best gas mileage, right? There's no doubt, but they're completely different classes of products. So it depends on what you want to do. I think in the mid-range of keeping a reef, if you can take $200-$300 pumps and run them on, and have a $600 pumping solution that's redundant and easy to clean, and et cetera, or one pump on your manifold and one pump on your return, I truly believe that's the best way to go.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I've learned over time, at least myself, I'll get like a cheaper one, then I'll get a better one, then I'll upgrade to a better one, and I'll upgrade to a better one. And at the end of the day, I probably would have been better off just buying the good one from the beginning rather than upgrading 3 or 4 times and having to sell them and go through the hassle.
Well, and to add to that, Devin, is just there are certain things. Hey, I buy cheap, right? I have a brake removal tool for compression and removal tool for my Mini Cooper, right? I bought it at Harbor Freight. It's a piece of junk, right? But I'm going to use it once every 4 years, okay? And so I'm not going to go out and buy the snap-on tool version of that tool. So it's not going to make sense. On the other hand, for my drill driver that I have, I'm going to buy a really nice drill driver. I'm not going to buy the cheap Harbor Freight one because I'm going to be using it all the time. And I think this is the same thing with reef keeping, right? You can go out and buy a cheap net. You can go out and buy a cheap siphon hose or these kinds of things. But the things that you rely on for for your life support, and the things that you want to be sure of when you want to go away on vacation, if you do that or whatever, those are the things that you're not going to cut corners on.
Yeah, it's true. And to an extent, I mean, half of it's, the bells and whistles and stuff makes your life easier. And the other half is you get what you pay for to an extent. So it's one of those things everyone has to kind of consider.
But with that, I'm going to get out of here, guys. Thank you so much. I love you having this thing, Devin. It's fun to get on. I get on every 2 or 3 weeks just to chat Reef, because I enjoy talking with other people about their aquariums and stuff more than anything else. So
always appreciate
thanks
having
for doing it. All right. So take care. See you guys later.
So Reefing with O did the manifold, but I didn't want to run my pump high and less clutter in the sump. So on the flip side, if you run a pump at half speed, I feel it's likely more efficient than running it at max.
Yes, so with a manifold, I'll tell you. So I've changed return pumps since I've been using the manifold a couple of times. I even went to a Reef Octopus, 2,800 gallon per hour pump, and that pump couldn't head pressure well. But when you go from 70%, 60% to 100%, you're running the pump 40% more, but you're only getting marginal flow. When I was running it at 70, I was getting 300 gallons per hour to the display. Running it at 100, I got 15 or 20 more gallons per hour. It's not that much.
Yeah.
And So I'm changing the manifold for a couple of reasons. So one, less clutter. One, I want my pump to last longer.
Hmm.
Uh, Secondly, the way I want to do things now, I think you and I spoke privately about like doing the whole redundancy with the two pumps.
Yep.
While I decided I can't do that for space on a couple of different reasons,
Hmm.
what I will do is I will set it up. The last like foot of the pump, I'm gonna do with silicone to reduce vibration. So I'm gonna make it so if my cousin or my brother-in-law or my nephew, if I'm not home and something fails, someone can come over and easily attach a pump. Like I'll have a Devo sitting there, another pump sitting there as backup. Someone else can come in and just attach a pump with just a few clamps and just plug it in,
Yep.
and it's gone. Like I'm back up.
Hmm.
Also, one of the reasons I run a manifold is to feed like the way the Red Sea tank set up. They give you like a little ATO auto top off container that I don't use. So another reason for the manifold is to sort of feed the refugium. Now with me going like, with a new sump where I'm gonna, you know, the need for those things, I won't need those things. I won't need to run a Chaeto reactor. I won't need to run a mini refugium. I'll have a big enough standard refugium. So I'm also kind of cutting out the need for a manifold anyway.
Hmm.
You know? Yeah. So those are some of the reasons. It's less maintenance, and the two devices I ran a manifold with, I won't need them anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fair. They're on the flip side too. It's nice to have stuff, simple to an extent, right? Not overcomplicate it for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw this out there because I'm just thinking about it now. So every time it's always a bit of a pain to get the Hangout links out in YouTube on a weekly basis since they changed it to the redirect. So for future, I think I might just post the Hangout link to like the ReefDudes Facebook group. So I'm just gonna throw that out there for future. If you guys want to do it, that's probably where I'll just post it there just to make life easier. And Zachary, if you're in the chat, thanks for subscribing. ReefDudes, how can you cure dry rocks once lived? Cure dry rocks. Well, you don't really need to cure it if it's already live rock, but generally, if you want to kill everything on the rock, you would give it some form of acid bath, or some people use bleach and different things, and you have to recycle it or basically recycle it, get it live again. All I run my manifold is phosphate carbon with GFO. Yeah, so on mine I have GFO and carbon, which I haven't changed in ages. And then my LG reactor all running off mine. Works pretty well. And, oh, I got another video. I got some little tiny reactors, the somatic ones I got the other day. So I also got to do a video on that soon. I've been trying to figure out I've been on the hunt for a small reactor. I made my own, which would work awesome, but they're fairly big. I'm trying to find something smaller, so I got a somatic one, which is basically, it looks very similar to Two Little Fishies one. It looks like basically a nicer version of the Two Little Fishies one. So
I said it's smaller because I got one when BRS was having their Christmas giveaway. I got one. I just never opened it.
I got mine in my closet. I bet it's going on the tank soon. Again, I have to wait till I do a video before I can put it on the tank. But
So
it'll be good. However, it matches the color schemes of my tank. And it basically is like the Two Little Fishies, but it just feels like it's a bit high quality, like a bit more solid than the Two Little Fishies one. They're similar, but I'd say it's just a little bit nicer.
All right, I'm gonna take it out and look at it because I have it.
I love how you haven't looked at it. I
Yeah,
took mine out of the box and put it back and says, "Oh, I gotta take a video before I put it on the tank."
one of the reasons I got it, I wanted to do because I'm using a Chaeto reactor on one of the 14-gallon tanks, and it's working well.
Mm-hmm.
Working well. Like I have a feed pump and I have lights, but I've recently discovered there's a company in tank that actually kind of makes like a basket.
Yep.
So there's a way where I can actually still have a high performing refugium without having anything hanging on the back of the tank.
Hey, what
So,
size? I might have sold it. I used to have one of those in tank refugium baskets.
see,
I think I sold it though. I'll check. I'll check my
double
box and
check.
the fish stuff. I'll let you know if I still have it.
All right, yeah. So I actually, yeah. So I'm gonna do that on the nanos. It's gonna be interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna, yeah. So instead of having like a oh man, a hang-on Chaeto reactor, which performed well,
Yep.
But what happened, I realized, is that if you don't clean it out like often enough, the flow slows down significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So it requires a lot of maintenance over time. So with the basket, also I want to give my kids more involvement in maintenance of the tank, and I think it'll be easier for him to just be on a schedule where he just lifts it up and pulls out like a little bit of Cheeto, and that's like nutrient export.
Yeah. Yeah,
Versus
true.
having to disconnect a reactor, open the top of a reactor, make sure you don't spill any of the water out, take it to the unhook the lights, take it to the bathroom, pull the entire two little fishies kind of thing out, take off some of the Cheeto, put it back, clean the O-rings, because if any Cheeto is kept in there, it'll leak. So I just think, maintenance is a lot easier doing it that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's proven that having, a big enough refugium can keep nutrients low on a nano tank. I just want to sort of do it in a easier to maintain way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's fair. It makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, you're accomplishing something fairly similar, so just more than one way to do it. So I'll get you there. All right, guys, I do gotta run, so I am gonna shut her down. But big thank you. Big shout out to Reefer Guild. Thank you for the super chat. And thank every one of you guys for joining tonight. It's been a pretty good one. And yeah, we'll do it next Wednesday. For future, if anyone wants to join, I'm probably just going to post a hangout to the ReefDudes Facebook group. Hit that bell. Thank you. Appreciate it, Joshua. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you guys hit that like button. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe and hit the bell, because that's when you get the notifications. The bell is basically the subscribe button these days. If you hit subscribe, like, it might show up somewhere in your feed, but if you hit the bell, then you actually have the notification for the live streams. So it'll be kind of good. Your buddy getting rid of the 90 Bowfront. How did he get a 180 for free? Wow. Yeah, exactly. He got a sweet deal on that. One of my other buddies, Brad, who does all the Focustronic, they're on his tank. He was doing a job, and he does contracting type of stuff. And basically, someone was getting rid of the tank. They didn't want it, so he grabbed it, or one of his friends, somebody grabbed it. Anyway, so my other buddy getting it. So I filmed a bunch of stuff when I helped him migrate the tank. So that's another video I gotta work on and post sometime in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, for Kurt, Red Sea has my vote. Yeah, Red Sea, not the cheapest, but they make gorgeous tanks. Like, they're very,
also, I think those two, Red Sea and Innovative Marine.
yeah, smaller. Actually, the Innovative Marine makes large tanks too. I've had Innovative Marine. I've had 3 of their tanks now. They're very nice tanks, and same with Red Sea. Both of them, for the all-in-ones or even the larger ones for Reef Ready, they're probably one of the ones I'd say.
I think generally the Innovative Marine has the sump at the back.
Yep.
And the Red Sea has it's an entire. The Innovative Marine is just, I think, mostly the tank only and stand, but the sump is in the back. And I think generally the Red Sea, is the sump is at the bottom. It has an overflow and sump at the bottom.
Except for the Nano.
The Red Sea Nano is all in one?
Yeah, it is the one that I might be getting.
All right, yes, all in one.
But the rest all have a sump, yes. Innovative Marine are mainly all-in-one sump in the backs.
Yes, yes. So, but those two, I've had both, and they're absolutely love them. Top notch, top quality. Not cheap, because if you're looking at it and comparing it to, let's say, a standard Aquarium or Petco, it's going to be more expensive. But those are well built. The glass is good, and
So the big difference in a lot of those ones, like, you have most of them, the Red Sea and Innovative Marine, they use low iron glass. You're gonna have all the polished edges. You're gonna have the small tape silicone seams. You're not gonna have the big blur like you see, like the cheap tanks. It's just the finishings are nicer, right? I mean, they'll both hold water, they'll both look cool, but the other one will look, like the premium, high-end, pristine, extra pretty. So that's the basic difference. I mean, they cost more, but they're premium.
One other addition to the Innovative Marine is it's not necessarily the cheapest option, but they do make a bunch of accessories. So if you want to maintain that really clean look of those Innovative Marine tanks, so they'll make a skimmer that fits into those back. So you can buy equipment from Red Sea, from Innovative Marine, that fits that back chamber perfectly. Or you can find tons of skimmers and stuff, but if you want, if it's an all-in-one and the equipment is in the back and you want everything to just look streamlined, you can get skimmer and a couple other things that just fits in those back chambers, that's not going to look bulky and have a lot of stuff just hanging on the back or showing up when you're looking at a tank.
I will give Innovative Marine a quick shout out too, because I've owned through Innovative Marine tanks. One of them had a little pedestal stand and it was like sagging a bit. I emailed them about it. They sent me a new one, like nothing. So good support there. Like definitely want to give them a shout out for that one. This was like a few years back now, but I was impressed by that for sure.
I've had good customer service from them also.
Yep.
And Red Sea, not with a tank. Well, yes, with a tank. I've just wanted replacement nozzles and stuff.
Yep.
They've sent, but just Red Sea as a whole. I mean, once I think I have a Red Sea test kit, and I lost like the little tips, the little nozzles for like filtration test kits. They mailed ones.
Nice.
So I do like. I think if you go with any one of those,
Both
I don't
great
think.
brands.
Yeah, you have to worry about support. They're both good companies, good product.
Which is nice. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut her down tonight. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed tonight's stream. If you liked it, hit that like button, and I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for joining tonight, and I'll see you guys next week.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.